Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's review. Hi, everybody. I've done this once before when I've been sitting at my desk thinking, sure, there's something I need to have done, and I just can't put my finger on it. And this morning, mid shower, it was, I need to do my monthly review. It's the problem when you start something new, or certainly when I start something new. It's actually remembering that I need to need to do it regularly. Anyway, so welcome to November. October was a lot less emotional reading wise than September was. I have all my totals here for you. So as you know, I do a poll on LinkedIn of what animal species I spoke to the most. So you're getting a sneak preview here because I think the poll results only end next week. I spoke to 7 cats, 10 dogs, and 1 rabbit. I was very, very excited. I spoke to a very special bunny. I'm always excited when I speak to other animals besides cats and dogs because, well, cats and dogs are the animals that I speak to predominantly because they are the kind of the standard domestic pet. But I have a gentleman who has an affinity with rabbits, and I have spoken to 2 of his rabbits, one in spirit and one that he now has that is very much alive. So I was very, very excited that at least there was another animal there in the statistics this month. So sure, if you have any other animals that are not cats, dogs, or rabbits, I would be more than happy. I have spoken to horses in the past. I just don't know that many people with horses. So, right, with regards to actual readings, if you remember last month, I had a lot of really heavy emotional readings. There were a lot of Rainbow Bridge readings. There were a lot of rehoming readings where animals had to be rehomed due to clashing multiple animal households and all sorts of things. And it was just, whew, it was heavy going. But this month, the ratio was completely different. So I did predominantly actually general readings. And these are just checking in on an animal to find out how they're doing, if they're happy with their lives, if there's anything that makes them feel uncomfortable in their household, if they have enough stimulation via, play or interaction with their people, if there's anything that can be done to make them more comfortable, more happy, do they need anything, etc., etc. So those are just general readings, and they're nice because, unless there's an issue that we're focusing on, they just it's just like a general chit chat. So the majority of my readings were those readings this month. I did 9 of those. I did 2 transition readings, one which was a sort of a future transition reading. So the animal is elderly, and it feels like she is on her kind of her last stretch, but her transition isn't imminent, or certainly we didn't feel that it was. But another animal was imminent, and we were lucky that we got to speak to her literally just days before her mum had to take her to the vet to put her to sleep, because she was in fact I think she was already at the vet. She was already very ill, and she'd been fighting for a long time on and off. She'd been back and forth to the vet, but eventually it just became too much. So that was very sad. I did 3 Rainbow Bridge readings. One which was particularly sad because I had spoken to the animal when it was alive earlier this year, I believe. And I generally keep in touch with most of my clients. I kind of do a check-in after a month or 2 after their reading, just to find out how things are, how the animal is. And this lady contacted me to let me know that this particular cat had passed away. So I was quite sad because I'd spoken to it obviously earlier this year. So we did an emergency reading, not an emergency reading, a Rainbow Bridge reading for her. It's always sad doing Rainbow Bridge readings, especially if I've spoken to the animal when it was alive. because I feel a kind of affinity, like, oh, I'm sorry you did. I mean, the animal never feels that way. It's just a human thing that you kind of incorporate into the readings, correctly or incorrectly. I don't know, but we have our emotions for better or for worse. I did 3 behavior readings, and behavior readings are predominantly when the animal is behaving in a certain way that's not acceptable. Now, I take these readings on really with a lot of thought, because I do not believe that animal communication can replace animal behaviorists. I believe that we can work together, but I do not believe that animal communication can replace behaviorists, because animal communication is much like talking therapy. You can talk through something, and sometimes talking through it and voicing your opinion and voicing your worries, your concerns, your fears is enough. And sometimes when you voice those concerns and you discover that, oh, actually, I don't need to be frightened of XYZ because this is in place in this household or this environment. And actually, I am going to be okay, from the animal's perspective. And sometimes that works, and that's enough. However, if animals have been through trauma, if they've been abused, if there are deep-seated behavioral issues, talking about it and voicing their opinion about how scared and traumatized they are is not going to help them. And that's where behaviorists come in. Behaviorists understand how they're able to change an animal's behavior. And I can't do that. I can talk to an animal and give it the space it needs to voice its opinions and fears. But I can't say to an animal, well, I can, but it's not always going to work. You need to change your behavior because the consequences of that behavior are going to be X, Y, Z. Sometimes that works if it's a small thing, but if it's a deep-seated trauma, that's not going to cut it. Can you imagine if you had some sort of deep-seated trauma and somebody said, you need to change that behavior, otherwise it's going to get you into trouble in the future? You'd be like, yeah, thanks for that useless information. But yeah, in these cases, the behavior readings were okay. And in fact, I had some really positive results back from the one where I actually incorporated a chakra balancing crystal treatment, which I'll come on to later. And then we had one emergency reading. So I'm not sure if I've mentioned before that there is the facility to have an emergency reading. You guys know that I have roughly a 1 to 2 to 2.5 week, depending on how busy things are, waiting list. So if you book today and you send me your questions today, you usually have to wait roughly 2 weeks for your appointment. However, that's not going to help you if your animal's at the vet and you want to speak to it before you have it put to sleep, for instance, and you need an emergency reading. I do offer that facility. You do have to pay for it though, because sometimes that means I have to cancel my plans, or I have to come up and do a reading after dinner, or I have to get up very, very early, or I have to get up indeed at the middle of the night to do a reading. So you do have to pay for it, but it is there and it is available. Please, if you need that, you must email me. Don't contact me on social media, because I'm not active on social media after a certain time at nighttime or early in the morning, but emails I always check. So if you do book the emergency reading, you'll see when you buy a product in my shop, there's something called Fast Track. And that obviously is Fast Track to get it through quickly. Email me and let me know that you've purchased it, or better still, email me and ask me if I'm available and I can squeeze it in, just in case I'm, I don't know, sunning myself on an exotic beach somewhere. So those were the types of readings that I did this month. It was, like I say, a lot less emotional than the previous month, but that comes with the work. Sometimes I just have a run of really emotional readings, some that I can really relate to, and some which are emotional because I feel what the client's going through. To a certain extent, I always feel what the client's going through, but it's just sometimes it weighs heavier than others. So that really is a summary of business-wise what happened in the animal communication side of my business in the month of October. So if you follow me on social media, you might have seen that I'm holding a virtual coffee morning at the moment. I went to a real in-person coffee morning a couple of weeks ago, and paid an entrance fee and got to drink coffee and eat lots of cake. And all the money that was received for that coffee morning was done to help a certain charity over here called Les Amis des Animaux. For those that don't speak French, that means roughly friends of the animals. And it kind of got me thinking, because whilst I can't hold a coffee morning here at my physical premises, because all my clients and my friends are based internationally, I thought, well, why not try and hold a virtual coffee morning? So I got in contact with the charity. They've created a page on their website that's specifically called Colleen Cozy's Coffee Morning. And basically the tickets are €5. And for each €5 ticket you buy, you get an entry into a draw. And at the end of November, I do a grand prize draw, and I pick one ticket out of all the tickets that have been bought, and that person will win a full animal communication reading, the one that's done via email. If you buy 10 tickets, you get a free 3-question reading for your animal. So some people have already done that, which is really nice. So you get to donate money to the charity for a good cause, but you also get a 3-question reading for your animal. And 3 questions, I was just saying to a client yesterday, I have a client, I've read for a few of her dogs, and she contributed, she bought 10 tickets, so she got a 3-question reading. And I did say to her that, quite often 3 questions doesn't always seem enough, especially if the questions are really deep and meaningful. But in her case, actually, the 3 questions that she asked turned out to be really, really useful. And it was for a dog that she had just recently rescued. And the questions actually really did help shed some light on, what the dog needed moving forward. So whilst normally I wouldn't promote a 3-question reading, because you can't always build rapport with an animal with 3 questions. The minimum I do is the 5-question reading, where I'm actually asking 3 standard questions of my own, as I do for every reading that I do, which is the Reiki check and asking the animal if it has anything to offer, anything to say. But it's much like a conversation when you meet someone for the first time. You can't always glean a lot about each other if you're only asking each other 3 questions. So, but anyway, it seems to be working quite well, and it's a fun exercise for this specific coffee morning. So the link to that page, if you would like to buy a ticket, or better still, if you'd like to buy 10 tickets so you can get the free 3-question reading, it's in the description of this video. So fingers crossed I can raise some money for them. Today, as at the 9th of November, we've raised €170. Gosh, I don't know if you can hear that noise. It's my husband drilling in the woodshed. I can just hear this SDS drill in the side in the wall. It's just there. That wall is the woodshed wall. Yeah, so if you would like to contribute, then the link will be in the description. On the 29th of November, on my YouTube channel, I will be going live, and I will do a draw then of all the winning tickets. So fingers crossed, and good luck to all of those who've already bought tickets. So now that all the business, well, most of the business blurb is out of the way, I thought I'd give you a quick update on what's been happening in general in my life at the moment. In the last video, you will see that I spoke about our woodshed. So we have a stone building that backs onto this wall, which is my office wall, which backs onto the barn. And we'd spent a good couple of months, predominantly my husband, converting that stone building into a sealed building so that we could store our wood in there. We could have the log splitting machine, we could have all the tools to do with anything to do with wood in that one place. Because we're renovating, things are pretty slow because you can only do one thing when you've done that, and you can only do that when you've done that. So it was a massive knock-on effect. We had to pull down the current roof of that building because it was dilapidated anyway. They had to pull down half of the wall, had to rebuild some of the wall, had to dig out all the floor, had to concrete the floor, had to put a roof on, had to put insulation on, had to put the battens, had to put the tiles on. Oh, and it's been fabulous, but I'll put some pictures around as I'm talking when I've edited the video, but you'll see now it's looking so smart. So my husband today is busy putting the wood around there's three openings. We think it was like a pig shed before or something, three very narrow openings. And so he's putting some wood around those openings so we can actually put some doors in. And we keep joking and saying, nothing's straight in these barns. So you can't just go up to a wall and put a shelf on. These shelves here, you'll see, are only on the walls where there's plaster. So my husband's had to actually make sure that, because nothing's flat, you can't just put those shelves up against a wall. So when you put the door frames on, you also, when you put that bit of wood up against the door, you can see it kind of wobbles. So he's kind of got to put it on and wedge it, and then put sort of mortar and stuff behind it so that they secure. But that's looking so much better. So that's very exciting. We also spent a whole day clearing out the cottage. So on our land, we have this really lovely. It's still there. Just this lovely little cottage. It was going to be the building that my mum was going to live in. We were trying to get her to come over from South Africa, but that was a long, involved process. And then COVID happened, and then she passed away. So she's not. Well, she is here. She's just here in a different form because I brought her ashes across from South Africa. So she did end up living here with us, but not quite in the form that she was expecting to. But we cleared out this cottage. When we first arrived, the cottage was already quite run down. Very, very cute. Obviously, people had lived there, massive big fireplace inside, but the wooden floor had obviously rotted away. And there were some roof tiles that were broken. And we didn't have money to, and we don't have money to do the cottage up, because our money goes on converting this building. But it's been 8 years since we arrived, and unfortunately, where the hole in the roof was, a few other holes have developed. And when you have a hole in a wooden roof and the water gets in over time, the beams start to rot. And then the more the beams rot, the more the tiles fall in, the more water gets in, the more the beams rot, etc., etc. And we did have acros, those massive metal joists that you can put in to support the weight of the beams, because even though there was a little upstairs floor, those beams were starting to sag. So we put the acros in to keep that floor up. But a couple of months ago, we used to keep, we used to use the ground floor as a storage area. And a couple of months ago, we went in and two of the acros had actually fallen over, which shows just how much those beams had shifted. And the whole back wall, where the wall that backs onto the little track that we are on, is just bowing out. And it's very sad, but it's basically going to collapse. And it's very sad because I look at that cottage and I think of my mum, obviously, but also it's a lovely little building. And, I must show you some of the things we found in there. We found old metal spoons. We found lots of metal tools and lots of bits of broken crockery. And, you can really start to think about the life and the people that were living there beforehand. There was no toilet in there. There was an upstairs, and there's a little dormer window upstairs. There's a massive fireplace. There's an old stone sink. Just the history in that building is just absolutely remarkable. And we would love to preserve it and restore it, but we just don't have the money. It would just cost so much to do it. So we've taken out all the little bits, the little metal spoon and the hanging chains that they would hang over the top of the fireplace to do their cooking, and the metal sort of stands that they have for putting the pots on under the stove. And we've kept all of those, and we will keep those, and we'll treat them, and we'll either put them in the house somewhere here or out in the garden somewhere so that they're always remembered. But sadly, the cottage, sadly the cottage will go. So we've emptied it out. It took a lot of work because there was a lot of stuff in there. Were loads of tiles, and we needed the tiles actually to finish the woodshed roof. So we got all the tiles out, but we took everything out. We've had a massive clear out. And what I would like to do from a spiritual perspective actually is to take a little offering to honor, the spirits that were in that house or are in that house. It will have so much history. It'll have so much energy. It'll have the vibes of the people that lived there, the people that laughed there, the people that ate there, the people that slept there. And I would like to take in a little offering, and I believe that spirits like a little shot of alcohol. And I actually found a little broken shot glass, a little tiny little glass. And I thought of actually putting a little bit of whiskey in there and taking a little bit of bread or cake or something and taking it into the middle of the cottage and just thanking them for, allowing us, well, not allowing us, but just, thanking them for having that place that we could find, and that we could, the surrounding grounds and the surrounding buildings, we're bringing all back to life. And maybe just apologize that we don't have the financial means to do up the cottage, but we've saved all the bits and pieces, and we will honor their memory. And, we wish them well and leave them their little whiskey and their cake, and then just shut the door. There is a door. There's no windows, but there is a door. Shame, yeah, and just declare that chapter closed. So, yeah, that's pretty sad. That's pretty sad. So this probably should have gone under the business thing, not the life thing, but strictly speaking, it hasn't really gone live in business. So you may have heard me mention earlier on when I was dealing with one of my behavior readings that I did a chakra balancing, crystal cleansing treatment with a particular dog. Now, I love crystals. We have hundreds of them. We used to collect, well, we still do. We have a massive private collection. We have some beautiful pieces, some really massive pieces. And a good couple of years ago, there was a couple here in France who had an online crystal shop. So for small things, pendulums and lots of tumbles and small kind of clear quartz wands and points and stuff like that. And they were closing down this business because their kids had left to go to university and they wanted to have some freedom again. And in a moment of insanity, we bought their entire stock. And I had an Etsy shop for many years, but just for whatever reason, it didn't quite. Yes, we made a lot of our money back, but it just didn't work for whatever reason. But anyway, so we still have all our stock. And I have a rather large collection here in my office that I work with, just as being part of my day-to-day, part of my animal communication, part of my morning journaling, part of my practice. And I don't know what made me do it, but I was working with this dog, and all of a sudden I just thought, I need to just check this dog's chakras and see if there's an imbalance. And I have a tray, maybe I'll put a photo in when I edit the video. I have a tray here that has groups of colored crystals, and I just pulled out, one color for each of the chakras, so matching the chakra colors, and I laid them out on the table. I got out my pendulum. I cleansed them with some Reiki, stated my intention for what I wanted to do with those crystals and that pendulum. And then I literally tested each chakra using my pendulum if this dog's chakra is balanced or not. And sure enough, there were 3 or 4 that were unbalanced. And then I sat with Reiki and with the crystals, and I worked with the Reiki to balance those particular chakras that were unbalanced. And then I went back and I tested with my pendulum again to see if there were any changes. And sure enough, those chakras were now balanced. And I wrote it all up in a report and I sent it off to the lady. And it was incredible. This dog had severe separation anxiety. It was actually, I'd even said to her up front, I don't think animal communication is right for this. You need to see a behaviorist, as per my behaviorist explanations earlier on in the video. And for whatever reason, they had tried a lot of avenues, and we decided to go ahead just so we could see what the dog was thinking when he was experiencing this severe anxiety. And we did find something that was unusual. But the day after his reading and his treatment, the lady said she'd had to go out for an emergency appointment, and they have cameras in the house that monitor him. I mean, he was that bad. And she said it was incredible. They'd gone out for like more than an hour, and besides the fact that he got up and he wandered around, other than that, he was completely calm. And they'd never had that before. He's usually frantic when they go out, And I was like, oh, how interesting. I wonder if that's something which I can offer. So I put a note out on Instagram and offered it as a treatment, as a introductory offer of 20 euros. I created a massive template document. It's 9 pages long. It explains what all the chakras are. It explains what I do. It explains how I test them, what the status of the chakras are at the beginning, which ones are balanced and which ones are unbalanced. I do the treatment, it comes back, it tells you which ones, if there are any changes. I tell you what crystals I've used. And then I also give you suggestions of how you can actually help those specific chakras at home, and whether you have a dog or a cat. And I had a couple of people who took me up on the offer, and I had such great feedback from everybody. And one lady even went ahead and bought a full reading afterwards, because we'd uncovered some really interesting things during the chakra balancing, and she wanted to know more. So she's now booked animal communication reading, so we can go into depth, which is fabulous. So I am going to now bring this in as a product. It will be offered as an introductory offer of 20 euros for starters, so that people can see what it's all about. And I will be changing that to 35 euros when it goes live. But you'll have to keep watching on social media, because I'll announce it on social media and you'll see it there, and you'll see when it's about to go up to the 35. I was thinking of perhaps doing it as 20 for the month of December, and then from January doing it for 35. So let me know what you think, and if you would like to go ahead and purchase one. They're really fun to do, and they can be really, really interesting, especially when you see, like in the one I did yesterday, the issues that the dog is having, or no, in this case it was a cat, the issues that this cat was having, and then doing the chakra check and seeing the one specific chakra coming up as imbalanced, which related to the issue that the cat was having. And it's like, I love me a bit of woo-woo. So let me know if you are interested in that. And keep watching social media for updates on that one. So we can't have a monthly review without at least getting some update on the cats. So as you know from last month's video, I have 6 cats. Half and half, Jabari, Blue, Nala, Kinky, and Friday. I gave all the blurb last month, so I won't go through it all again. But I thought I would tell you a little bit about Kinky this month. So he's the one who's in the little thumbnail announcing this video section, and you'll see he's got food all over his mouth. When we stole him, he was. I'm just going to explain that quickly, just in case people are going to arrest me. He was a little stray that had arrived at an elderly lady's house, and the elderly lady had dementia, and she loved cats, and she had a very kind heart, but she wasn't able to look after him, and she would forget to feed him for days, and he was a tiny kitten. And the one day I went round, I think I only saw her every 2 weeks, and this kitten was so painfully thin that I was like, oh my God, this is not. And he had dried food caked all over his face. And I went in and I spoke to her, and I said to her, oh, have you fed the cat? And she was like, oh, no, I asked the neighbor to buy me some cat food last week, but I think she forgot. And, oh, would you mind looking at the TV because it doesn't appear to be working? And could you check the bathroom tap? And she just didn't register that this animal needed constant care. So I spoke to my husband, and we decided, it was middle of October, that he wouldn't survive the winter if we left him there. So my husband went round to fix the TV that she'd mentioned to me, and literally we stole him. And I think she mentioned him once, and it was in passing, really. Oh, I wonder what happened to that kitten. Would you mind looking at this tap? So we brought him home, and ever since we've had him, he has had. I don't know what it is. Obviously, we took him to the vet and had him checked over when we first got him, and he had all these jabs. But he's got something wrong with his mouth. I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is. So when you feed him, when he puts his head in his bowl, like normal cats will kind of like, they'll eat with their tongue in their mouth. He doesn't. It's almost like his tongue doesn't work. So he can't really lap a lot. So basically he puts his whole face into the bowl of food and bites. So he just bites. So he pushes all the food as he bites. And literally, most of the time when he eats, I have to accompany him with a butter knife, and I have to push the food into a little pile in the middle of the bowl so that he can bite it and he can get something in his little mouth. And he always ends up with food, but then he doesn't wash himself. It's like he hasn't learned. So then, sometimes I have to wipe his little face, and he's very good. He just sits there and I wipe his little face and off he trots, and he's a very funny little creature. He really, really is. And he started, so we have two parts to our barn. So we have the downstairs kitchen, an entrance hall, utility room, downstairs shower room. And that's where we spend most of our time, and that's where the cats are allowed in. And then you go through that room into what will be our the area where we keep our books, and then the lounge area. And then you go upstairs where you have my husband's office and my office and our bedroom. But the cats aren't allowed up here yet for various reasons. But Kinky just decided randomly a few weeks ago, as soon as you open the door leading into this area, he's through there like a shot, and he comes up and he just sleeps on, there's not even a proper floor out there. It's still OSB board floor because we're in the middle of the renovation, and he just sleeps on the mat. And then he started coming into our bedroom and then he just sleeps on the mat in our bedroom. And I don't know what it is. I was saying to my husband earlier today, I feel very maternal towards him. We've had him for 2 years now, and he was about 6 months old, the vet reckoned, when we first got him. So he's 2.5 years old. He's, strictly speaking, a teenager, young cat now, but he's still very small. And I feel very maternal towards him, like he's a vulnerable kitten still. So I'm always faffing. And, my husband always rolls his eyes and goes, that cat's spoiled. I mean, don't get me wrong, my husband's also a big softie when it comes to cats, but it's just, it's really, really strange. So even just now, when I went out to had a look at him, he was curled up. There's like a mat just outside our bedroom door, and it's just like a random place. And he was just curled up on the mat. And of course I went and I go in the bedroom, and he had a little bed in the bedroom, and I go and fetch his little duvet, and I come out and I tuck the duvet around him, Oh, dearie me. So yeah, so that's the story of Kinky. He's a very, very sweet cat, and he doesn't meow, he moans. So if he's in the bedroom and he wants to go out, you get woken up by and literally that's the noise he makes. He doesn't, I've never heard him meow. He just makes that noise. And when he wants to get into this area of the house from the kitchen, that noise. It's this kind of like frustrated little moan, you know. So anyway, so that's Kinky. You get to know some of our cats. Okay, so I think that's about it. Have I covered everything? I think I have. Do let me know if you enjoy these videos. I know Jen commented from last month saying that she'd enjoy the video and she'd like to see more. But, you know, if there's anything you'd like to know about or you're curious about the business, or if there's anything that you're curious about country life in remote rural France, please just let me know, and I'm happy to do a little video or to do a little recording of the garden or the house or whatever. So just let me know what you'd like to see. So thank you for watching, and I guess I will see you at the end of November. Take care. Bye for now.